But just to open this, I want to formally say good afternoon to all of the guests who have made time to attend this significant occasion of the 11th Tsietsi Mashinini Memorial Lecture. This afternoon, I recognize and welcome the Mashinini family, the head teacher of the historic school, which is the site of struggle for a democratic education. I also pass on my regards to and welcome to the alumni, our special guests, the founders and the leaders of the current alumni who have resolved to keep the Morris Isaacson High School memory alive. And of course, I also want to welcome and be grateful to those who have spoken in the past and facilitated this lecture. Here's the structure of the lecture. We will try to be tight, focused, and due to time constraints, our speakers will be fair and focused so that we all have an opportunity to participate. And I wish to pause to deal with some basic logistics. In this process, we will be respectful to one another. We will present views in the best way possible. Yes, challenging, we will have that. However, I expect us to just be respectful and be just human. And then I am told that the bathrooms you can use are in the music center. Hakisi Music Center, music center. Yeah, that's where the bathrooms are. I'm done with housekeeping. But just a few more comments. This year marks an anniversary that demand that we pause and reflect. It has been 50 years since the June 16, 1926 Soweto Uprising happened, and it reverberated throughout the country, Africa, and the globe. And then, of course, we hold this day as important as we want to. On that note, having opened the session, I'd like Moruti Silomokoka to come and open with a prayer. Moruti.
Kyalewa baby, thank you, Program Director, and good afternoon. Dumelang kaofela. As a little while, whenever we have something as people, in order for the Lord to be with us and to be amongst our midst. So, only two verses that will invite the Lord to be with us. Can you all stand, please? Any chorus song. Tsietsi had a dream, but his dream was only known to himself only. Maybe his dream was, he was looking forward to the day when there will be no more tragedy of wars between the nations, wars between nations, wars which are nothing but matters legitimized by the wearing of uniform. He was looking forward to the day when there will be no enemies in our midst, enemies who treat each other with hatred, a hatred which, like a poisonous mineral, can eat into the very heart of our education. He was looking forward to the day when the value of any culture will not be judged by its location on the globe, but by its character, that one day all the diversity cultures will be joined together as one in the heart of a human race. He was looking forward to the day when it will not be races, but individual people who will be seen as noble or ignoble, rejecting no one from the human race because of class and color. He was looking forward to the day when all people will speak in harmony and their minds apprehend like. He was looking forward to the day when peace will rule the day because Christ will rule our hearts. He was looking forward to the day when people will form one community, one nation, with malice towards none, with charity for all, singing in one voice. Maybe he would have said, "Behold how good, how pleasant it is for a human race to dwell together in unity, harmony, and peace." Maybe this was Tsietsi Mashinini's dream. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Lord Almighty God, and all-knowing and seeing, we kneel before you, merciful, loving God. We bow our heads and throne of your heavenly kingdom. O Lord, we plead with you and ask you to give us a vision and leadership that will steer through these turbulent waters of many conflicts, of world wars, pandemics, killing, destruction of human lives. We pray that everything that we do, our action must reflect the love that resides in our hearts. You establish the order that governs our prayers, that give us peace in our time, that we may rejoice in the mercy and praise without end. Today we gathered here to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Tsietsi Mashinini Memorial Lecture, who, like your trusted servant Moses, who wandered in the land for 40 years with the children of Israel before reaching the promised land. Tsietsi Mashinini too led the youth, the student of this school, Morris Isaacson High School, and other children to take to the street to unchain themselves from the barbaric, abhorrent system of Bantu education that was designed to only educate the black native children to become hewers of wood and drawers of water, but only to seek equality education for all black native children of South Africa. God, may God remember, Lord, all those who have died and have gone before us, marked with the sign of faith, especially those whom we now pray and who have sacrificed their lives. Tsietsi, our teachers, student friends and colleagues, brothers and sisters and families who defied the apartheid system and laid down their lives. Teach us to become who we are today. Hear our prayers as a family gathered here together before you, and in mercy and love, unite us all, your children, wherever they are. Father, we now celebrate this memorial of redemption. We recall Christ, his descent among the dead, his resurrection, and his ascension to the right hand, looking for his glory. Welcome into kingdom, Tsietsi Mashinini, our departed brothers and sisters and teachers who left this world. Remember, O Lord, all those who have died in peace of Christ, and all the dead whose faith is only known to you alone. There we hope to share in your glory when every tear will be wiped away. God the Father, who created both heaven and earth, pour down your Holy Spirit as the world has spilled more blood with more killings, human trafficking, human child slavery, and drug trafficking. The world has deserted you, has deserted your holy ways. In our beautiful country, South Africa, corruption has taken the center stage. And those whom we have elected and trusted to lead us are but working for themselves only. We humbly beg you, O Lord Father, to send down your Holy Spirit to our bleeding, beautiful country and to restore it to its former glory. Cry, the beloved country. May this great, beautiful country of our forefathers find faith in Christ, the way, the truth, and the way of life. May its light shine upon the world. We ask you, O Lord, to bless the Mashinini family, to bless us and our honored guest, Professor Jansen and Phuthanang. We ask all this to Christ, our Lord, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in unity with the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Ra leboga ka thapelo eo Ntate Mokoka. Re tswela pele. The next item is our national anthem. It will be recorded. I hope they are ready to play it. Please, we do have to stand once more. Thank you. We may take our seats. Can we now have the owner of this venue to welcome us all, including myself? I have on the program that the RCL president, or is it the head teacher? Is it the principal? RCL president, you walking towards the door. You are needed up here to come and welcome us so that we should continue with our program very quickly. 2 minutes, Akirbab. That's my water. No. That's my water. 2 minutes now? Not long.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Program Director, the Mashinini family, our esteemed speakers of the day, Professor Jonathan Jansen, and Akona Genkan, the principal, the chairperson and members of the school governing body, Morris Isaacson alumni, educators, distinguished guests, representatives from government and the education sector, fellow learners and parents, and members of the community. My name is Sibusiso Twaedi, the 2026 RCL Representative Council of Learners President, and also serving as the Johannesburg Central District 14 Treasurer. On behalf of the learners of Morris Isaacson High School, I extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you gathered here today, to those who are tuning in nationally and globally for this important Tsietsi Mashinini lecture. Today, we gather not only to reflect on our history, but also to celebrate the courage, sacrifice, and determination of the young people of 1976. The legacy of Tsietsi Mashinini and countless other student leaders reminds us that education is far more than classrooms and examinations. It is about dignity, equality, opportunity, and freedom. 50 years after the events that changed the course of our nation, South Africa has made remarkable progress in education. Since 1994, access to schooling has expanded dramatically. Millions of young people, once denied quality education on the basis of race, now have the opportunity to learn. School infrastructure has improved. Learner support programs have been introduced, and higher education has been more accessible to many Black South Africans and South Africans as a whole. The legacy of 1976, therefore, challenges us not only to remember, but to act. It calls on today's learners to pursue excellence, educators to continue shaping future generations, leaders to continue make courageous decisions to support education and as the national priority. As we engage in today's discussions and reflections, may we honor the sacrifices of those who came before us by committing ourselves to the continued transformation of education in South Africa. To all our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us and for contributing to this important conversation. Your presence enriches this occasion and demonstrates our shared commitment to the future of education in our country. Once again, welcome to Maurice Isaacson High School, welcome to Soweto, welcome to the 11th Tsietsi Mashinini Memorial Lecture. May today's engagements inspire meaningful dialogue, thoughtful reflection, and renewed dedication to the ideals for which the youth of 1976 stood so bravely. I stand before you today conscious that the spirit of Tsietsi Mashinini and the heroes of 1976 lives in us. We are their continuation. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Sibusiso. This deserves a much louder applause. We're going to move very quickly. Phuthanang Youth Trust representatives, are you here? No? Okay, we're going to move. Betty? Oh, I thought it's the whole choir. It says here it's a choir. Bueno, choir.
The world changes, revolutionaries die, and the children forget. The ghetto
Program Director, distinguished academics, family of the late Tsietsi Mashinini, members of civil society, and young people in the room. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Neo Cholo Mtlabeng, a 21-year-old entrepreneur from Mamelodi, founder of Mosasana Pets, innovation and talent manager for the African African region of the Common Youth Council, chairperson of Teens with Vision, a former of the Diana Award in the United Kingdom, and a representative of South African Youth and International Conferences at UCL in New York. I hold a BCom in Marketing Management from the University of Johannesburg, and I'm currently pursuing BCom Honors in Business Science from Wits. I today speak as a young person who was able to do stuff, a young person who knew what education is all about. So I stand here on behalf of Phuthanang Youth Trust, a partner of this historic lecture. 50 years ago, young people like Tsietsi Mashinini stood up and said, enough. They demanded to be taught in a language that honored who they were. They sacrificed their tomorrow so that we will not have different today. Now, 50 years ago, we ask ourselves, in the post-1994 era, what has truly been achieved in the South African educational landscape, and perhaps what has been missed. Yes, we do have a curriculum that our children get to be at. Yes, the doors of the universities are open. The funding schemes like NSFAS exist. These are the real achievements that we thought are there. But overall, we have produced generations of black professionals, lawyers, engineers, entrepreneurs who have been unthinkable under the bound education. But besides all of that, we have missed so many stuff. Too many of our children today still sit in overcrowded classrooms. Too many schools still lack libraries. I come from Mamelodi, I know that. We have young people who miss schools because of periods. And despite of all these policy changes, we have seen so many things that are happening. So that is the unfinished work of 1976. And that is exactly why Phuthanang Youth Trust exists. We are not here to wait for the government alone. We are here to act. Let me give you examples. In education, we saw grade R learners at Makula Primary School struggling. We did not debate policy. We provided brain stimulating programs. We sponsored 50 learners in 2016, where they provided 100% rate. And in 2017, those same learners from Jabavu won 12 trophies against children from far affluent places. On access, we have funded over 30 university and FET students, where we also ran a Saturday school where 15 local volunteers teach grades 1 to 7. On the basis of 1994, we have piloted a fixed wireless home internet project in 30 households, where we train 6 youth in tech skills and partnered with Saibono to provide coding and robotics to grades 4 to 11. So, with all of those achievements, what we have been able to achieve post-1994 is the legislation, access, and a foundation. A foundation that there is more that needs to be done, but what we stand for is what Tsietsi Mashinini stood for, youth taking control for their own destiny. So Phuthanang Youth Trust is not a charity. It is a community that says we fill the gaps ourselves. The legacy of 1997-96 is not a memory, but it's a mandate to each and every one of us, a mandate to each young person that says, don't just talk about society, don't just talk about system, but get to vote and get to do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nell. We're going to move now to the essence of the lecture. At this point in time, I would like to introduce Professor Jonathan Jansen, a distinguished professor of education at Stellenbosch University and past president of Academy of Science of South Africa. He splits his time between research and teaching at the university and working as a turnaround specialist at high schools in the country. His recent books are on education inequalities in South African schools and corruption in universities. Today, he will be donating some of his books to the Maurice Isaacson High School. On that note, I'd like to welcome Professor Jansen.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. 2 days ago, I was lying in hospital being operated on. I've got a pain in the butt. And as I was in the recovery room 2 days ago, my doctor looked at me and he said, "You're not going anywhere. You must rest." I said, "Doctor, I like you very much, but I've been waiting all my life to get to this famous school in Soweto called Maurice Isaacson. I've been to other schools in Soweto. My first school was Pace College, where that famous professor of mathematics was the principal, Professor Kambule. But I've never been to this school, which was so big in my imagination. And so I'm sitting here and I'm feeling good because I might drop dead here, but that's okay, just bury me. But I'm so privileged to be with you. And then you sang my favorite song. Oh my Lord, I was crying there. Lisa Lee, Sindinga Lako. Oh my God, if only our youth knew the origins of that song. One of the greatest writers, poets, musicians, music people from another century. So I'm glad to be here with you today. Can I just check? How many of you here were not born in 1976? It's quite a few of you. Yeah. All right. How many of you were born in 1876? We won't go there. So the title of my talk on this 11th Tsietsi Mashinini Lecture is 50 years later. What does the Soweto Uprising mean for education struggles today? And so for the sake of some of the young people, maybe we should just retrace very briefly what happened. On June 16, 1976, almost to the day, thousands of students from schools in Soweto, the numbers vary depending on which source you read, from 5,000 to 10,000, streamed out of their schools to converge, at least that was the plan, on Orlando Stadium. The immediate issue, of course, was the 50-50 policy of the apartheid government that would extend the use of Afrikaans as the medium of instruction in schools. This policy directive made absolutely no sense outside the arrogance of Afrikaner nationalist politics that would willfully impose Afrikaans on black people when most students did not understand the language and most teachers could not teach in the language. It was, however, as we now know, a decision that would be the lightning spark that set aflame a national protest movement alongside the Durban strikes of 1973 that ended a long period of relative quiet since the murder of protesters in Sharpeville in 1960. It was also a decision that would forever embitter many black South Africans to the possibility of an acceptance of Afrikaans in everyday usage, something many Afrikaans-speaking white South Africans to this day simply cannot understand. Soweto 1976 was, moreover, a student protest movement branched out across the country, energized student struggles on a scale that South Africa had not witnessed through centuries of colonialism and apartheid. I remember in 1976, I was an undergraduate science student at the University of the Western Cape, and I was sitting in my chemistry class when the door burst open in N7, the big room, and there was Nicky Morgan and a few other students, all with afros, because they were all influenced by black consciousness. And they came in and said, "We are declaring solidarity with the students in Soweto." And I remember saying to a friend next to me, "Where the hell is Soweto?" I mean, you know, we were, in those days, you didn't travel, you didn't know. Nor did many of us know at the time that Soweto was an acronym for Southwestern townships. But this impacted us. We stayed out of classes. I failed my first year, partly because I didn't understand Afrikaans. Most of the lectures on Afrikaans, and partly because of the protests. It is not hyperbole, exaggeration, to suggest that the Soweto Uprising in the mid-70s was one of those movements that would sustain protests across all sectors and that would eventually contribute to the fall of apartheid. Now, it is not my goal, ladies and gentlemen, to recollect the specific events of June, July 76, because that has been done superbly by at least 12 authors in different books, and I've read all of them in preparing for today, including a few journal articles, particularly one by Archie Mafeje. But two of the best was a book by Sifiso Ndlovu, who was very much involved at a school nearby, a book called The Soweto Uprisings, Counter Memories of June 76, had 2 editions, and then one by Noor Niftagodin, simply called The Soweto Uprising, that just had a 2nd edition launched, I think it was this or last week. It is important to remember, however, that the Soweto Uprising did not emerge out of nowhere. There were for some time grievances expressed against the attempt to extend Afrikaans across the curriculum. Already in March of 1976, students in Form 1 and 2 at Pefeni Junior Secondary School, where Sifiso was a student, convened afternoon classes to discuss their response to the state's Afrikaans plan. The point is this: nobody listened to the concerns and complaints of students, parents, and teachers until it was too late. At that point in history, millions of black students were in schools for the first time in history, and inspired by black consciousness, the students rose to protest a white minority government making decisions about the language of instruction for a black majority populace. Hundreds of students died, and depending on which book you read or which source you go to, it was either 23, according to the South African police, or 575, according to the Celia Commission, or as most researchers would put it, 700, and thousands more were injured. Hector Peterson was shot and killed along at about the same time as another young man called Hastings Ndlovu. But the brilliant photography of Sam Nzima left an indelible impression on our minds to this day, as Hector's limb body was carried through the streets by a comrade alongside a terrified Antoinette Sithole. Those murders on and after June 16 is a wound that still sits at the heart of the South African body politic, and a memory that cannot and will not be erased. Now, it is in this regard a real sadness that the revised history curriculum on which we were called as the public to comment pays such flimsy attention to the role of the Soweto Uprising in shaping the course of South Africa's path to democracy in the late 20th century. Believe it or not, there are only 3 explicit mentions of the Soweto Uprising in the NSC, the National Curriculum Statement, for grades 7 and 9, and even less, 2, in grades 11 and 12, where we are left with this vacuous, empty statement. And I quote, "While there was early resistance against Bantu education from the moment of its inception," this would have been in the 1950s, "the 16 June 1976 Soweto Students' Uprising is perhaps the most well-known resistance to the system." Perhaps? Are you asleep? This system of education, here's a second quote, "This system of education was reformed over time. The racially segregated schooling remained in place until the mid-1990s. The mid-1990s? May I ask you here in Soweto, are all your public schools now racially integrated? It's the kind of nonsense that my colleagues write. And then you are told that you could study either Soweto 1976 or Cape Town 1976 or Durban 1976 or Limpopo 1976. How on earth are these options? How do you study Limpopo or Cape Town, where I'm from, without reference to the roots of the revolt here in Soweto? You need to read this stuff, because while the date for commentary might have passed, I urge you to, in the audience, to demand a more extensive and respectful account of the Soweto Uprising than this flimsy content suggests. Now, a lot of historians and smart people have written about the Soweto Uprising. I want to go a little bit further, because I'm not a historian. And I want to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, students, learners, what are the 7 most important lessons of the Soweto Uprising for South African education and politics today? And the first thing I want to suggest, when I think about Soweto and the long period of quiet since Sharpeville, I am impressed, as I always am, by the agency of students in the face of repression. They did not see themselves as passive observers in a crisis. They wanted to do something about the crisis. I give hundreds of talks a year all over the country, other parts of the world, but especially in South Africa. There's always somebody that gets up and says, "Professor, what can we do?" And I'm thinking, my goodness me, there's a crisis in front of you. Why are you asking? I don't tell them that because it might sound impolite. And then I say to them what Arthur Ashe, the first black man to win at Wimbledon tennis, who said, "Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. But don't ask, what can I do?" I was so frustrated as a professor of education at Stellenbosch when 2 years ago, the school where I now work half day, or at least for 2 years, I'm not there every day anymore, it had the worst results in the entire country in grade 12. And then I realized the school is right next to the house where I grew up. And I said, no, I've already got 13 schools that I'm working at around the country. I can't take on another school, so I went to bed. And my mother appeared to me at 2 a.m. in the morning from the grave. And I got such a shock. And she said, "Charity!" Which was my first girlfriend, but I knew she wasn't talking about charity. She said, "Charity begins at home." So the next morning I showed up at the school. I first called the Department of the Western Cape Education Department. I said, "I can do this for free. The university pays my salary. Do you want me to help?" They said, "Please, can you start tomorrow?" So I went. And if you invite me back, I'll tell you a story, a horror story. I couldn't believe what I saw. I could not believe what I saw. And so I had a great principal. She's still there. We work together every day. And I said, "You lead, ma'am. It's your school. I'll help on the side." And that school's results went up from 35 to 66 to 84, and this year it should be 95. Simply by understanding that I can sit in my air-conditioned office in Stellenbosch an hour away and pretend to be smart, or I can get into schools, as I do. Each of you have a role. Tsietsi Mashinini and others have told us we can do something rather than just stare at the problem. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Let me also just thank the principal and leadership of Morris Isaacson for not doing what so many schools in our country do in order to impress the ministers. They drop physical science, they drop accounting, and they drop pure math so that the results look good on paper. Don't do that, because the people who suffer are black children, and they can't get into medicine. You know, there are now courses in the BA that don't take students unless they have pure math. It's not just about medicine and architecture. So, you know, when I listen to the colleagues who were at the school from the airport to here, everyone tells me the same story. Do you know what they tell me? Mark Potterton. Mark is the principal of Immaculata. He hasn't invited me yet, so, you know, I was hoping today he will. No, he hasn't. Do you know what they all tell me? This school in 1976 produced doctors. This school produced engineers. This school produced Gordon Spear, a nuclear physicist. This school produced teachers. This school, despite the apartheid system, produced, and there's no reason why you can't do it again. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong. I teach white students, I teach black students. There's white students who are very smart, and there's white students who are not so smart. There's black students who are very smart, and there's black students that I have to spend more time with. Talent is normally distributed. Your skin doesn't determine how far you go. Your gender doesn't determine how far you go. Do something about the situation. That's what Soweto 76 teaches me. Number two, what I take on from 76 was the principled opposition of the student movement. I read very carefully. And up to the moment that the police turned violent, the students were not violent. The students were peaceful. They thought this was going to be a wonderful day of celebration, of going out, of making their perception. But before they could do that, they shot Hector Peterson in the back, and they murdered many more students. But that principal opposition, I'm going in to change the situation without violence, is something that we should always respect today. There was a broad-based coalition, number 3, that drew in many different groups, not just SASM, the South African Student Movement, but many other groups that didn't even have names, long before there was the movement that Tsietsi Mashinini headed up. Because of his charisma, because of his natural leadership talent, he rose to the top and became this amazing leader that we remember today. Never fall into the trap of sectarian politics. Never have people choose for you among friends on the basis of race or religion or political party. We are one people. I see that at the Soccer World Cup. Oh, I shouldn't bring that up. I'm still suffering. I'm still suffering. How the hell do you dribble in your own? You're not Spain. Kick the ball. I don't know. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. But we all support the soccer team because it's us. It's our country. It's a country we want to succeed. And when we drop out, we support the other African country until we get to whatever country. But that spirit of a broad-based coalition, not of sectarianism, is something that carried that movement across black consciousness and eventually Congress politics and so on and so forth. Number 4, I take from this amazing uprising the personal sacrifices that people made even when it hurt you most. People forget a lot of students across the country didn't write exams in 2 years. That was a huge sacrifice, especially if you were in the senior grades. But there was an even bigger sacrifice. And John Cain Berman, before he became president of Race Relations, he was a journalist. And he writes that very often students ran towards the police with nothing, with no defenses, with nothing but their willingness to sacrifice for the sake of all of us. This week, a South African became a trillionaire. I didn't even know what that is. He was with my son at Pretoria Boys High School. Well, and I said to my son, where did you go wrong? Until I realized what a terrible person he is, so I said, no, we did something right. But if Elon Musk gave every person in Soweto R1 million, his bank account wouldn't feel anything. That's what it means to be a trillionaire. He now has more money. He now has more money than the top 4 people together under him. But let me tell you something. You can have all the money in the world and still be deeply unhappy. You can have all the money in the world, but unless you don't make that work for other people, my wife and I for many years now, and we've taught this to our 2 children who are in their 30s, once you've paid your electricity bill and your groceries, every cent goes towards the education of other people's children. It is still more blessed to give than to receive. What difference do you make? And your resources doesn't have to be money. It can be time. It can simply be spending time with those who have less. But that's what I did. You're not going to like number 5. The 5th lesson, at least some of you won't like it. I'm hoping many of you will. You know what I took from the life of Tsietsi Mashinini, from the life of the ANC, the PAC, Black Conscience and so on, is there was a broad Pan-Africanism. You didn't see yourself just as a South African. You saw yourself as part of Africa. And when Portuguese colonialism fell in 1974 in Mozambique and Angola, we were excited as young university students. But this could mean the end of colonialism in Namibia, in Zimbabwe, and eventually the fall of apartheid in South Africa. There was a sense that we belonged to a bigger nation, to a bigger continent than simply South Africanness. When the government the South African government, the apartheid government, when they put a bullet intended for Tsietsi Mashinini, he had to flee the country. Where did he flee? Not to Europe. He fled into Botswana, eventually into Liberia, and on to Guinea. Thousands of students fled over our borders after '76. Many of them into Samafco in Tanzania. There was a sense on the part of what was called the frontline states, the states surrounding South Africa, that despite retaliation from the apartheid government, they would support the South African cause. I cannot tell you how it distresses me to see this turn in South African politics, the hatred of foreigners who look like us. I've never seen a protest against white people from Europe or America. We turn against people who look like us. That has to stop, ladies and gentlemen. That was not the spirit of 1976. And whether you do this on spiritual grounds, on moral grounds, that my brother and my sister is my brother and my sister, no matter where they were born, or whether you do this on the basis of self-interest, the survey data shows very clearly, I should hand this to my sister for later, that on average, foreign nationals bring 2 jobs into South Africa for every one they might occupy. That is a fact. Why are we fighting with our brothers and sisters who look like us? If you took all the science and math teachers out of Soweto and Thohoyandou, you'll have a crisis in your grade 12 results. If you took out of our universities Africa's most famous philosopher, Kilimembe here at Wits, or the most famous professor of cancer chemistry on the continent at UCT, a man from Zambia, Kelly Chibale. If you took out the most famous agronomist from Nigeria at Stellenbosch University, you will not have universities worth the name. They teach our students, they graduate our master's and doctoral graduates. Why, in God's name, are we fighting with the people who look like us? Simply because of the accident of birth. And let me tell you something. As one who grew up in a fundamentalist evangelical home, Jesus died for all of us, not for some of us. There are bad people in South Africa, there are bad people in Zimbabwe, there are bad people, but most of us try to do good for others. The other thing that I find really powerful in the Soweto 1976 moment is the singling out of education as the basis for our freedom. Not waterworks, not public enterprises, not the mining industry. People put their bodies on the line for education. I'm now 69 years old. I've studied education all my life. I've taught high school biology, life sciences, and now physical sciences at this school. And I've taught university for most of my life. Ladies and gentlemen, I still do not know of any other means of escaping poverty than a good quality education. I don't know of any other way. There's drugs in my community, but then you'll be dead by 21. But a good quality education gets us out of trouble. And finally, I want to stress the importance in these times of youth leadership. I wish to recognize and honor Tsietsi Donald Mashinini. I'm so happy to have met his younger brother today. And I want to thank you, sir, and the family for the enormous sacrifice that you've made in giving him to all of us. May Tsietsi's spirit and those of the thousands who sacrificed their lives for our freedom continue to live among us and inspire us to continue the struggle for the many still left behind in unequal schools and by a government that again risks not listening to the demands for equality of outcomes. And since many people have asked me every day, the media today, SABC asked me again, what is the one thing we can do to get out of this trouble? Forget grade 12. Build a strong ECD foundation, early childhood education. Make sure that every child that comes into grade 1 can read, can write, can compute. Make sure that we fund, which is not the case at the moment. Don't listen to the state of the nation. It's not the case at the moment that every child in South Africa is fully funded by government. It's a choice to be able to access quality education. When you build the school system from the bottom up, everybody wins. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you very much. My work is not to summarize anything, but to now open up the session for questions and additions and engagement with the content that we've just received. We have roving mics. Raise your hand. Ke kopa re ske ra etsa di-speech. Re-express. I'm sure Prof has tabulated at least 5 things that I had that we may actually use currently and think about it. The first one is agency. Ke kopa re botse dipotso, re ske ra etsa di-statements tsa rena, ne? Ke a le kgopela hle batho. Okay. Hands. Processing. There's a hand there. Mike. Mike mo pele mo. Second row, 1, 2, 3. The lady here. Other hands. There's another one there. 3, 1, 2, 3. Commander. Professor Hutsermo. We're going to take 3. The next one.
Thank you, Prof. I just have a short question on your last point about the ECD system. I would like to know whether you and other academics are satisfied with the curriculum that is being taught at, I think, at universities to produce ECD teachers. The reason I'm asking, most of the black schools don't have a holistic curriculum. We only see it in the Model C schools and the private schools, where you have a whole, not only the academics, but also extramural and sports. Is the curriculum what it should be according to you?
Thank you. Let me take the third one, Prof, and then you can respond. I'll come around for the next round. The last third person there. Lenny Kiabona, I'll come to you.
Professor, with all due respect, I just want to drive one point. Oh, just let me ask questions first. When our South African brothers were in exile, were they all over those countries? Because what I understand, they were kept in refugee camps, restricted. They had to go out for 1 hour, per day, and then come back. Once you are late, you get punished. And then these so-called African brothers, and I'm sorry, I'm not fighting with all of them. I have a son-in-law who's from Africa, so it's not about that. If they are here legally, not illegally, and they have turned our country into a gentry house, can you open your home to all of us, and then those people shut their doors to your children? We have to have passports, visas, and everything when we go to their country. I went to Zimbabwe, I went to Maputo. You can't drive for 5 kilometers without being stopped and asked for a passport. Why must they have a free-for-all?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think Prof will respond to those 3 questions. Yeah, Prof? The first one was exactly about foreigners.
No, thank you very much for challenging me, for raising the questions. I appreciate it, okay? I lived in different parts of Africa, particularly in Zimbabwe, in Chinoy. I never once had an experience as a young student of being victimized. I was welcomed by people who had no money to sleep in their homes and so on. So I have a very different experience. I acknowledge the fact, ma'am, that not everybody had the same kinds of experiences. I respect you for that. I suspect that's also true in South Africa today. Many people are really good to foreign nationals, others are not. That's true everywhere. What I'm scared about is that we become like America, that we slide into that situation, that you see an absolute hatred driven from the top, okay? Where a Somali referee, for example, best in Africa, they say, cannot even blow a match because of Donald Trump's madness. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about what it does to us as human beings, okay? I mean, I'm listening to the national anthem, okay, that was being played early on. And in the middle of that national anthem, in a place in which we were very critical of Afrikaans, when I came down this thing here, this pathway, all the students were singing the whole anthem, including the Afrikaans part, despite the hurt that it caused us. So whatever happens in other countries, as a South African, I like to think we have a higher standard. I like to think that I won't be pulled down to hate or to fear or to fight people who look like me. That is how I approach this problem and so on. And again, from a spiritual point of view, it's very hard for me to sit in a church or read a Bible and pretend that I'm this person when I cannot love my neighbor as I'm instructed to do. It's just how I approach the problem. Sir, you raise a very important problem. The universities, if you go to ECD, and I was at Pretoria University first, Durban, Westville, Pretoria, Free State, Stellenbosch, there's almost no black students studying foundation phase, let alone early childhood development. everybody wants to study FET, which is high school. There are complex reasons for that in our history, and so the young people there are mainly white women, okay, who go to Padastulki's Premier or one of these schools because they had good experiences of early childhood education. We have the added problem in our country, white and black, that you will very seldom find men teaching in primary school because people think, why are you teaching young children? Is there something wrong with you? So there's also that problem. And I don't think our country has figured out, I've made this point many times when I was the Dean of Education, how to change that. Because if we don't, for example, how do you teach mother tongue effectively in the lower grades other than in English and Afrikaans? So I take your point, and it's not a point that universities, I think, have resolved. Thank you.
Thanks, Bro. I'm going to take only 3 last questions. 3 bagaetso. And the reason being that the whole we're moving. Professor spoke 5 critical points. That of agency, that of the curriculum, that of the ECD that's not necessarily funded well, okay? And then at the end was the Pan-Africanist approach, yeah? So it's gonna be important that at least we should also deal with those areas that are pertinent to us, yeah? Short, sweet, and to the point. Unfortunately, Prof has got time pressure, yeah? Oh, apparently there is a Q&A website you can go on to, where you can put your questions. But what else can you do in a lecture? Just a little bit, the tip of the iceberg. There has to be a lot of yeah? Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying there's a website, sorry, Prof. There's a website we've been given. You can go on to this whole website. Okay? It's tsietsi.carrd.co. tsietsi.carrd.co. Oh, and you can scan a code, the QR code on the screens. The reason why we give this, these conversations have to continue. We will never exhaust it in a day, and in 3 hours, okay? So let me get those questions from you. Yes, sir, when?
Is that there's currently talk of the government of rewriting history or people writing history. I'm not quite sure exactly what that is. To probably include what was not included in our South African history. Professor Jansen can tell us more about that. My worry, my main concern is that a lot of us are aware that the has not been really
Thank you for the opportunity to engage, Prof. I've just got a quick question, and I think in your second lesson you spoke about the importance of broad-based coalitions and this idea that we are one people. And my question, or I don't know if it's a concern, but is that, while this vision can promote social cohesion and this idea of national unity, how do we pursue unity without slipping into a form of color blindness that overlooks the historical realities of race, of culture, of socio-economic discrepancies that really shape the experiences of young people today? So how do we build solidarity but still recognizing the importance and responding to the differences of race, socio-economic status, and some of the historical imbalances of the past? Thank you.
To the point, yes, go to the airport.
A very quick question. How do we move from political to economic freedom from the side of university advising government so that we can fight poverty?
He has to go to the airport quickly, please.
Just because of time.
Thank you, Professor, for being here despite the fact that you were supposed to be home recovering. My question is on your comment on ECD. You said there should be a focus in ensuring that there's quality education for young children who can read, write, and compute. We have a pandemic, I'll call it that children at grade 6 and 7 cannot comprehend what they are reading. And therefore, they look like they are stupid because they didn't understand the question. So is there work that is currently being done to ensure that this is improving? Because it's not the first time I'm hearing about it. Is there work that is being done to change this so that we have a different caliber of children that are going into high school? Thanks.
Right. I'm sorry, I am not able to take more questions. I'm not able to take more questions. I am sorry, but that doesn't stop us from getting the questions onto the website. We can't do a lot, 1 hour, and Prof has to leave. So I'm going to end that. Unfortunately, please, we can fight outside. But just really forgive me. There's nothing much I can do, guys. But please put the questions in the website. There's an alumni in this school. Maybe their work is actually to follow through some of these questions and engage on platforms, social media platforms, webinars, and whatever. We just have to be creative. I'm so sorry. Those are the only questions Prof can answer now. All right. And we have another speaker. I know you don't have programs. We have another presentation. That's also exciting. All right, Prof, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can I also just say my email is very simple. It's my name and surname, Jonathan Jansen, no dots, at sun, S-U-N, not moon, sun, .ac.za. I'm very, very happy to respond to questions that way as well. I tried very hard, sir, to understand what you were asking, but I have no idea what you asked. All I heard you say is we haven't finished what we started, and I completely agree with you, which is why I took, you might have said something about leadership, I don't know. Clearly, you can't change anything without it. How do we pursue unity without being colorblind or unaware of the differences that divide us? Absolutely. We've got to do both. It's a skill. It takes an enormous amount of patience and humility, but you've got to do both. You've got to keep this country together, or we will pull ourselves apart. There are enough forces, particularly with these smaller political parties, that just want to pull us apart. You know, in Cape Town, there's now a colored independent movement, and I really wish they would be thrown into the sea or something. But, you know, it's all these small little movements. You know, there's now a political party here in Johannesburg that makes it its mission to go after people simply because they come from somewhere else. We can't do that. And so in schools where I work, we have done a lot of research on this, in that the kids who now go to the really good schools, technically good, are middle-class black students and wealthy and middle-class white students. That is not good enough, okay? And so the first thing is to call out these inequalities. Nothing against white students, got nothing against wealthy students, but I have something against the fact that all of our children, regardless of where they come from, what they look like, whether their parents work or not, must have access to the same quality education. Otherwise, why do we do what we do? And so that must be non-negotiable, okay? I lead a program called Training Future Professors for our country. 90% of those really smart future professors are black, but there are also a small number of white students, and so on and so forth. You've got to do both. You've got to take your resources and make sure everybody's included, but at the same time understand our history and make sure that those who were forever disadvantaged get the same issue with gender. It is, for me, an embarrassment that we haven't yet had a woman president, but we want to talk about equality, right? So it is important for us to never lose sight of the fact that we've got two goals here. Keep our people together, but do it in a way that also attends to these differences that keep us apart. I think that is the entire point, sir, that you make. We have our political freedom. I'm very happy for that. But we don't have our economic freedom. There's still too much unemployment. There's still, and you know, some of these things you can fix quite easily. If there was a Soweto 76 then, I would like to see a Soweto 2026 that goes after NSFAS and says, why is it that with billions of rands, you are unable to make sure that a student who is smart, he or she has played by the rules, cannot get access in January to money for tuition, for class fees, for travel, for food, for accommodation. That is not difficult for a country that did heart transplants. That is not difficult for a country that discovered the Omicron variant here in Botswana during the pandemic. That's not difficult to do. But because it's corrupted from the inside. You know how easy it is to solve the NSFAS problem? You just give that money to the 26 universities and you say, run it yourself. And if you can't, we'll give you private sector support to run it. It's easy. But when government holds on to it, ask yourself why. So a lot of the things that stands in that block economic freedom is within our control. And we're just not doing enough about that. And is there work being done on foundational literacies? Absolutely. One of them, which I'm very proud of, used to sit on the board, is called Funda Wande. And I know there are Funda Wande programs all over the Western Cape. There might be, Eastern Cape, sorry. I know there might be some here as well. Funda Wande works, but here's the problem with external interventions, with NGOs. You can only impact where you work. To solve the problem systemically that is across all the schools in our country, you need a government. And right now, we don't have the kind of government that takes this seriously enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. This marks the end of the first part. We do have Akona, whom I will introduce once we release Prof, so he can catch his flight back to Stellenbosch. On this note, we would like to thank you very much for your time. The alumni, indeed, there's a lot of questions amongst ourselves here, and I think we will stay with those questions. So, Kikupa Donnie, to offer you a gift. Then we have a song, after which Prof will leave the stage. This is a sense of appreciation, just a sign of appreciation from the alumni and from the Mashinini family. Yeah, somebody will come and carry it for you. Come stand here. Come stand closer for a photo.
Wait, I need another one. Wait, can you just hold it?
Yeah.
Can I get another one? Stand closer.
Another one?
Another one.
Another one, Elmon? Thank you, Prof. You are released to go. Somebody will carry it for you. Can we have a song in the meantime whilst we get Prof leaving the stage?
Explain to people that the prof is not taking it, we're going to send it to them.
We're going to send. Is it that? I think we should go on now with our program. The next presentation, it would be great if we could quiet a little bit. Elmond, hamba no professor, phumelani ngaphandle, sifuna ukuqhubeka ngeprogram yethu. The next presentation, which is equally exciting, is from Akona Ngekana. She is a researcher working for the UNICEF, that's it. This thing, you see, 50 years of June 16, does wonders on people. UNICEF. Her work is really on social inclusion. She is passionate with data analysis. She does a lot of evidence-based research with the ultimate objective to try and introduce content that can impact on legislation and policy. And if we just capture what Prof was saying, that we have an education system, but I think somehow we delay on getting data and getting evidence-based information that says to us, we're going the right trajectory, we're not going the right trajectory, we're including people, we're excluding people. The cost of education in terms of NSFAS is increasing. They get absorbed by this economy. We need to ask those questions. The alumni, all of ourselves, the veterans, and the class of 26. Let's keep asking those questions. And her work is about revealing what data says. Nobody can query research data unless utsama o etsa gago research. O ka se re research ka wrong. Tsamo etsa gago be re compare. Yeah, so I want to introduce her to come to the podium and give us her presentation. Akona, you're welcome.
Molweni, Dumelang. As I was preparing for this August gathering and for this profound reflection of the journey we have walked as a country to 1976, I didn't quite anticipate that I would actually get here and not hear a single gwicho about this day. And so perhaps to the DJs and perhaps to the floor, just one for me to rejuvenate myself and remember myself that I am actually in Soweto. But I don't know how to sing, and I am hoping that when I start, the floor would actually quickly catch the song. Zeni bambeni we bafa, zeni bambeni, zeni bambeni. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and to the program director. To the Tsietsi Mashinini family, the past and the present Morris Isaacson High School family, the youth of South Africa, and the distinguished guests present here. Greetings this afternoon. We gather here today 50 years after the events of June 1976, as Prof has indicated, a defining moment in our history. The students who marched through the streets of Soweto and other parts of South Africa confronted an education system designed not to liberate, but to subordinate. They challenged a system that denied them dignity, limited their opportunities, and sought to control not only what they learned, but also what they understood themselves and the world around them. While their struggle was about language, but it was also about power, about knowledge, about equality, the right of a meaningful education. 50 years later, we honor their courage. Yet the greatest tribute we can offer is not remembrance alone. It is an honest assessment of whether the educational injustices they opposed have truly been overcome 50 years later. That assessment must begin not with sentiments, but from my end with evidence. As it has been indicated, I'm quite passionate about issues of data. If we are serious about understanding the state of education in South Africa today, we must be willing to confront what the data tells us. The evidence is certainly sobering. I think the questions to Prof's presentation has also in some way touched to some of those sobering issues. If we are serious about understanding then this, what is it that we need to do? Approximately about 81% of grade 4 learners cannot read for meaning. And I think the early learning question came from 3 or 4 questions on the floor already, the issue of early learning and ECD in general. More than 1 million of children who enter grade 1 will not complete grade 12. That's what the data tells us. And where do those who fall in the crack end up in? Those are the questions that we need to ponder. So across the system, educational outcomes continue to reflect deep inequalities associated with geography, with language, with socioeconomic status, and historical patterns of exclusion. These are not merely indicators of poor performance, they are indicators of unequal life chances. They reveal that while access to education has expanded significantly since the dawn of our democracy, access alone has not translated into meaningful learning for millions of children in South Africa. Indeed, one of the most important lessons from the last 3 decades is that enrollment is not the same as educational success. Attendance is not the same as learning, and policy intentions are not the same as policy outcomes. This therefore raises a critical question for all of us. Why? Why, despite progressive legislation, substantial public investments, and successive waves of reforms, do these inequalities persist? I'll put this here because the nerves when you are on the stage would require me to actually go back in there and forget that I have read it already. So a common explanation is usually pointed towards implementation issues, right? Especially around issues of policy. According to this view, our policies are fundamentally sound, but their execution is quite weak. This is something that we know across board around issues of progressive policies in South Africa, but challenges with implementation. There is undoubtedly truth about that argument. Capacity constraints, administrative weakness, resource limitations, and governance failures continue to affect educational delivery in our country. I'm sure the principals and the teachers in this room would agree greatly about that one. Worth noting, though, is that evidence suggests that implementation alone cannot explain the scale and the persistence of the crisis we face in our education system in the country. 50 years after 1976, many of the inequalities embedded within a colonial and apartheid education system remains visible in different forms. Patterns of privileges and disadvantages continue to shape educational outcomes. Schools serving poor communities frequently face challenges that extend beyond funding alone, including weaker institutional capacity, limited access to learning resources, and persistent barriers to academic success. The question before us, therefore, is not simply whether policies are being implemented effectively. It is whether the underlying structure that produce unequal outcomes have been fundamentally transformed in South Africa. This is where the legacy of 1976 becomes particularly important. The students of 1976 challenged more than a language policy. They challenged an educational order that determined whose knowledge mattered, whose voices were valued, and whose future were prioritized. Today, the struggle for educational justice remains inseparable from the question of language, knowledge, power, and institutional inequality. These issues continue to shape who succeeds, who struggles, and whose experience remain invisible within the education system. Nevertheless, if we are to address the challenges effectively, we require more than a critique. We require evidence. Moreover, this is where education data becomes indispensable. Too often, educational debates are dominated by political rhetoric, ideological contestations, or reactive interventions. Decisions are made in response to public pressure, media attention, or institutional interests that rather than systematic evidence at times. So when reliable information is absent, inequalities become difficult to identify systematically. Interventions become difficult to target, and accountability becomes too difficult to enforce. In such circumstances, educational failures can persist without being adequately measured or addressed. For this reason, which is something that my current experience in the work I am currently grappling with as I work on the education management information systems in general, the power that they actually hold when they are actually implemented effectively and managed effectively. They are not merely technical tools or administrative tools. They are essential instruments for educational justice that we need in our country. Effective education data systems across the globe, they allow us to identify where learners are being left behind, understand why inequalities persist and where they persist, and evaluate whether interventions are working and ensure the resources are directed where they are mostly needed. But now, if data is an afterthought to the interventions required, and then the powerful intervention that could actually be used using those systems becomes ineffective. Most importantly, they make inequalities visible. Any teacher or anyone who has access to the education management information system in this room, they would know what I am talking about, because all of those are reflected on MEs and the data that they use within the country. Without credible and integrated data systems, educational disadvantage can remain hidden behind aggregate statistics and policy declarations. We have education statistics that are reported from surveys, for instance, from Statistics South Africa, when we are sitting with the education management information system that collects that data on an annual basis, that could actually give us the numbers that we actually get from surveys at times. Without robust data systems, however, we are able to move beyond assumptions and confront some of the realities we are facing. We can measure learning outcomes rather than simple enrollment. We can identify schools requiring urgent support rather than relying on anecdotes. We can evaluate policy effectiveness rather than assuming success. In addition, we can hold institutions accountable for results rather than intentions. Yet, data alone is not enough. I could stand here and advocate for data, but I know that it is not enough when it is approached alone. The question is not merely whether information exists, but whether it is trusted, it is accessible, it is integrated and used to inform decision-making. A democratic education system requires a democratic evidence infrastructure. I am saying this because there is, in the data conversations, we are talking about data interoperability. We might be talking about this now in 2026, but evidence from the ministries have shown that they have actually been doing that long before we actually have this conversation. The data that is collected in the school management information system is important and can be validated against the data that is collected by social development to ensure that the kids are getting the social services, and also validate that information against the Department of Home Affairs with the data that is simply collected by one institution. And so the strengthening of this institution is important for that interoperability exercise. Teachers, school learners, communities, researchers, and policymakers must all be able to engage with evidence in ways that strengthen accountability and improve educational outcomes. We now know that there is a pre-approval process that NSFAS does for students who are actually entering education. And that is because they get that data from social development to understand who are the students or who are the learners who have been part of the social grant system, and those automatically get the pre-approval. But if the systems are not strengthened and that system is not, a child could not get that service on the basis that they were actually not properly registered or that data did not infiltrate through to some of the systems. And so the relationship of these systems is very crucial for some of the improvements that we want to see, both in education and social services in general. So in this sense, the democratization of educational data is itself a matter of justice. To count every learner is to recognize them. It's not enough just to count them. To measure inequality honestly is to refuse the normalized issues of missing information. To make educational outcomes visible is to create the possibility of transformation. The challenge before us is therefore both analytical and political. We must strengthen our ability to understand educational realities while we simultaneously building the institutional capacity required to change them. This demands a clear set of prioritization. To me, and it could be different to someone else, I think the questions about foundational literacy has become more a national imperative. I would not even dwell much on this because the questions on the floor spoke quite extensively on this or revealed the need for foundational learning to be strengthened in one way or the other. And of course, the issue of resource allocation, and I think Prof did speak to this in his presentation as well. This must become equitable and more responsive to evidence. Historical disadvantage cannot be overcome through equal treatment alone. It requires targeted investments at times informed by reliable data. And third, the issue of language policy reform must support learning while affirming dignity and identity. The aspirations of 1976 remind us that the language remains central to educational inclusion and educational justice. And these a lot of studies have come out to actually make this point quite clearly, that the issues of comprehension that we actually have is because the learners are taught in languages that are not of their own, and so the relativity that is required is not there. And yet, when you see in some of the surveys, the students who are learning and who are assessed in their language, they actually tend to progress more than when they are assessed either in English or Afrikaans. So that is the important thing about this. And so the fourth is on the institutional accountability. This must extend beyond compliance and reporting. Schools, district, provinces, and national departments must be accountable for educational outcomes and internal success. And the fifth and the last for me is South Africa must invest stronger, integrated and democratized educational information systems capable of supporting evidence-driven governance across the entire education sector. These priorities are interconnected because none can fully succeed without the other. And so the integrated and democratized educational information systems are capable of supporting evidence governance across the education sector. These priorities together, they present a shift from managing education to, in fact, transforming it. Most importantly, they represent a shift from symbolism to accountability. The lesson of 1976 is not that educational injustices disappear with political change. The lesson is that justice requires continuous vigilance, continuous struggle, and continuous transformation. As we reflect on the last 50 years, we should acknowledge the substantial gains that have been made. Millions more children attend school. Educational opportunities have expanded. Discriminatory legislation have been dismantled. And I think the SRC president of the school alluded to this point. However, we must also recognize that access without learning, inclusion without success, and policy without accountability cannot fulfill the aspiration of those who marched in 1976. The unfinished promise of educational justice demands more. It demands that we move beyond measuring participation to measuring learning itself, beyond celebrating policy commitments to evaluating policy outcomes, beyond commemorating history to transforming present realities, informed by the history we are commemorating. In addition, beyond rhetoric to evidence-based accountability. Ultimately, if we were to honor the legacy of 1976, would be required the political courage to build an education system in which every child, regardless of geography, race, language, gender, or class, can read for meaning. Because those who cannot read and write, you can trace them by their geography, by their class, and by their social status in society. The students of 1976 demanded dignity, equality, and epistemic justice. 50 years later, our responsibility is clear. We must build an education system capable not only of remembering their struggle, but of fulfilling its unfinished promise. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Akona. Thank you so much. This was very educative, and I think what it does is it opens up a discussion that says agency, what are we doing, and quality of education and everything else. I'm not going to reinterpret. I'm going to save time for engagement. But before I do that, I need to make a very important announcement. We think because we know life is not perpetual. So, those who are still around who were with Tsietsi Mashinini, some of them are in this hall. So, we request that they find an opportunity to take a photograph, because it's only through images that we have retained memories, and only through photos that archives are built. If we don't do that, there'll be a big space, anybody in it, and they will just write class of 76 on the wall. So you will organize yourselves. Can I leave it to you and the photographers at a certain point in time? Yeah? So can we now open the platform for questions? Not statements. Questions, Bachaitz. Don't motivate your question, just ask. And ask in any language. Of course, not other languages we don't know. But ask in any language we can translate and interpret. Okay? So, hence, on the basis of what Akona was telling us, I'm going to start right there at the beginning. I'll give you a number, please. Please, Bachaitz. I don't have the memory to retain those numbers. You number 1, 2, 3. I'll just call 4, 5. That's it. First round. This time we have sufficient time to cover a lot of people, not lots of time. Don't motivate. Number 1.
Libitso laka, my name is Nomsa Mildred Dlamini, ECD Little Prince and Princess in Alberton. The problem with reading ebantwaneni, it's because the parents are more happy if the children speak English. Phela kwento abazali abayifunayo umntana wami uyakwazi ukukhuluma English and then acabanga ukuthi ufundile. No, mina I've diverted a bit from a curriculum. I start from the back forward. It's knowledge first and then the language. So if sonke singathi sine meeting singama ECD sihlangane sikhulume ngalwe form of education enginika abantwana bami, I'll try to explain again ukuthi baqala ngama alphabets or ABC, and then from those ABCs I take the vowels. From the vowels you take the vowel and the consonant, you form 2-letter words, and then from 2-letter words, 3-letter words, and then the child will be able to read. So if all of us ECDs can use that system, yokufundisa abantwana, hayi English qala, ukuthi mawuhlangana naye Pick n Pay uzumntwana ekhuluma isingisi. I always say to the parents, isingisi siyadelela. Sifuna usibhala, uma ngakwazi usibhala isingisi uyaphoxeka. And the other thing, abama abantwana mabeza kwi-ECD, I don't have imiswingi yonke lento yokudlala. Abazanga kuzodlala, bazofunda. Ngiye ngibatshele nabo ukuthi asizanga kuzodlala abantu abami sizofunda. I do take them out to facilities ngoba abantwana they need to go to facilities bayoswinga benza yonke into. But the important thing is to educate them, prepare them to read and write. I've got 2 students.
Now, sekuphelile manje. Siyabonga ma. Appreciate that. You're talking about agency, and that's what you're doing. It has to spread. The question is going to be how. Number 2, question.
We shouldn't relegate that. We really have to embrace that. Maybe we haven't lost too much. I'm not going to ask a question, brother. It is a comment. And in conclusion,
Thank you. I think it's quite an important input, it's the context. And moving away from there, I'm sure the alumni is here to inform whichever way we go. I think what's important is, yes, tell the history, yes, tell the incidents, however, say where we are at. We will definitely need 2 days to do that. Yeah, it's in 2 hours. However, can we get number 3? Question?
What I directly say to that is that how do we create reading as a fundamental aspect of society, believe is not corruption in our society evolves. You go to hospital, streets of Soweto, there are levels, but they are us. The solution.
Can we take another question? Number 4, is it? Okay, fine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lutando Jasop. I must say I am impressed by the two presenters today. But I would like to ask a question to the second speaker. Is it possible to ukuthi sikhuphule izinga le-education yabantwana bethu ikukuthi our public figures are taking their children to private schools? I mean, this should be the issue we should be dealing with nationally, not only in education, in all these sectors. Health sector, we see public figures, they have their own medical aids. They can take their children and their families to private hospitals. Now, I'm saying all this just for you to help me. Is it feasible? Any suggestion would have, because we see our leaders, how they are. They are less interested in our interests as a nation. They care for themselves. And so what I'm saying is that, is it feasible that we can upgrade our children, give them quality education, whilst going to public schools which are not well funded? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruthie. Must we take a corner? Cannot take 3 more? Because the first 2 were comments, Ruthie. I took 5. Would you want 2 more? I'm going to take the 1, 2 only from the side, yeah?
Artificial intelligence. We've spoken about kids who cannot read or write, but there's a big wave of artificial intelligence that's coming in, and it's impacting how our students are learning, doing their assignments in universities, and it's going to impact how we work. And it's going to obliterate a whole lot of work that we currently do not even have those types of jobs. So a lot of jobs are going to vanish, and there's this big wave that is coming in. There's a huge ocean between where we are as South African blacks in particular, and where artificial intelligence is and is applied overseas. Are we ever going to catch up dealing with the current issues that we have a lot of persons who still cannot read or write? So how is artificial intelligence going to even help us to stay competitive and to be able to have beautiful jobs?
Thanks. Thank you so much. Can I just have 1 more? There's a hand. Oh, Pala. I will come back.
Hello,
So we still have another
Akona.
20 minutes.
I just want you to speak to how government has responded to the data that has been reflected in the school results since 1994, and speak to, based on your research, to find whether the government is adequately responding, especially to township school, to schools in the rural areas and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Akona. We'll come back to the next round. That will be the last round.
Thank you very much for these questions. And I do not even think that they are questions and comments to me per se, a reflection to deepen the debate and the discussions around the issues that have been raised. The question, the comment that was made first on ECD, I mean, that debate is one that is actually important. And I think what is commendable from our government is that realization that, because ECD has been sitting at social development in our country for quite some time, and it is only in the recent years that it is actually transitioning to basic education. And also that speaks to the framing of the country on what it defined as early childhood education, right? Because the framework of social development and how it operates versus the framework of basic education is different. And I think that transition or that transfer of the program from social development to basic education is going to yield some of the results that we have been struggling to see when the program has been sitting at social development, because this was issue of psychosocial development and not so much emphasis on academics, issues of reading and writing. And I think because basic education, that's their core, and that is going to help, you know, make progress to some of the issues we have with education, with early learning. And there's a study, I think it was done by Basic Education, the funds, Funda Uphumelele National Surveys, that unpacks some of the issues, especially around reading for early grades and where some of these challenges are. And I think the question of reading as a culture is tied to that, because that survey, the Funda Uphumelele, is asking like simple questions of whether the environment in which the child is supposed to be doing this reading and the writing, is there any culture, is there any person whom they should draw inspiration from other than in the classroom? You'd find out that at home there is not even a single book. If there's a book, there is a Bible, unrelated books. So the small culture shifts that we need to make. And importantly, that the responsibility of reading is not a responsibility of the school to teach, but for also the home to create that culture of learning is quite important. Local libraries are dying and all of that. All of those cultures, we used to go to libraries when we were young. Sometimes we went without actually having to read because it was an in thing to go. But in that exposure to the books and the library, when you expose a child to it, it is inevitable that they're going to pick a book. Whether they are able to read it or not, they would be able to familiarize themselves with it. So it's those small cultures that also help in some of the issues that we actually need to address in the country. While, of course, it is broad. Reading culture is broader than that, and I am just answering a very small aspect of it. The issue of the memorial lecture, I think while the question has been cut short, is actually important. When we come to lectures, we have different expectations, and in the memorial lecture, you would somehow expect that this is, but I don't think that the work that has been done by the alumni must be seen as if it is disassociated to the memorial lecture, because those are the rhetoric that I have been talking about in my presentation, that we're going to come here and hear about the rhetoric and the stories, and we are going to be revived and forget about the crux of the questions that the class of 1994 was fighting about. So I think this is related to that, and to speak about the issues that have been raised here today by both Prof and myself, it is to itself reflect into the Tsietsi Mashinini and the work that the class of 1976 thought about. I think the issue of public and private, while I will not delve into politicians taking their kids to, because our program director has indicated I work for the UN, and there are waters that I must not dribble with if I want to keep my job. So I will stay clear from that, okay? But the bigger question of a value education when it is public or when it is private is an important one. It is an important question to actually reflect in, is that all of the missing links in the system of public institution devalues it, such that, and it's not even politicians who take their kids to private institutions. It's the sacrifice that has been made by every parent because of the loopholes that they constantly face within the public education system. And so the investment in public education system is an important one. And by the way, the private education that we are actually so passionate about in South Africa, and say, oh, my child is studying in a private institution, it's a British curriculum. That British curriculum that is sold in South Africa, it's a public school in Britain. By the way. And so because of the value proposition, and in most of the first world countries, most of the learners go to public institutions because of the investment that has been done. And so that is a reflection that we actually need to have in our country, that public education is important, that its standard is uplifted. And the AI question, the big wave of AI. I stayed clear on this as I was doing this because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to me too. It is scary, to say the least, you know. The potential of this actually holding us further to the gains that we have already been making, because it is shifting. I think the debate of this must be tied to that fourth industrial revolution debate that was, because I don't know where that actually ended. The issue of artificial intelligence and how we should tackle this as a country. I do not claim any expertise to speak into this, because as I do my own research, it is quite scary. It looks like a shortcut. It looks like the struggles you are talking about, that as students, the critical thought that needs to be engaged in classes and all of that is solved in 5 minutes because they type these questions on ChatGPT and then they twist the words and then they submit their assignments. But then when it comes to engagement about the things that they have picked up, it's actually quite, and so there is work that we need to actually do on this as a country. And the question of data within the education system, I think the education management information system in the country is quite progressive. There's been a number of things that EMIS and the DDD, what is data-driven district program that the basic education have worked on. I think those are some of the progressive entry points for the improvement of data in our country. It has its own limitations, and I think the department is speaking about the improvements around EMIS that needs to be done, because outside of that system, we do not have anything. And so we are left to improve it, to actually support it to the standard that it's supposed to be in. And thank you.
Thanks, Akona. Thank you. I do have an opportunity to allow for just 2 burning questions. They must be burning. The ones that you can carry over for the next lecture, I'm going to take from the student, the learners here, okay? I'll make it 3. Yourself first, 1, 2, 3. Referred it. Aibo. Okay. Is it burning? Get your questions. You see, if you can just ask questions, don't make statements. Just ask a question. Go to the point. Ask a question. And then we will be able to engage those. Start.
Africa is effective in keeping up with the economic and technological changes with the rest of the world? And if not, what advice or alternative solutions would you give to the DOE as what should we do? Thank you.
Please. Thank you so much. Can you follow his example? Tight, clear question. Crisp and clear. Number 2.
The government has realized the gap between grade 3s and grade 4s. That makes the grade 4s not to be able to read. Do they have strategies to improve that? Because it has been ongoing. And when are they planning to implement the strategies to bridge the gap between grade 3s and grade 4? Thank you.
Thank you. The next.
2.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much. Akona, is it there?
I can't hear. They'll give you another one, don't worry.
My concern around data collection and inclusion. There's a huge group that I didn't hear you talking about there. The group of the mentally and the physically challenged kids. Many groups are talking autism now lately. The child that will leave the school at break time and never set foot again back to school because family is a strong child. What are we doing for that child? Because I think that's a huge number of kids that has fallen through the crevices that we never account for. What are we doing for them? And I pray to God they are not adding to the number of the younger kids that are in the streets. That are our major problem in the communities. They might have been slashed and given that wound back in basic education when we are talking early development now. What are we doing for that huge group of kids, the autistic child?
Well, the last question, I'm not going to allow us to go on.
Mike?
No, let's be fair to I'm going to go that side. Yeah, if you've asked a question, there's a website there. Just send the questions. There's 3, 4, 2 from that side only. Very fit. Yes.
Kialeboa. Mosotho a bua a re mpempe wa lapisa. Motho o kgonwa ke sa hae. Jwale ke batla ho tseba hore sebui sa rona a khona o itse ho na le mathata ka maleme a hore a Jansen. Jwale ke rata ho tseba hore rona re setjhaba sa rantsho re etsang ka bothata boo. Ha ke kena sekolo le ba bang ba latetse rona. Ha o kena sekolo ka dipasa kaofela math, science, tonton, ha o feitse Sesotho, Setswana, Sepedi, Sevenda, finish and klaar. Ho etsahetseng?
Potso ya hao ntate ke about Language. Yeah? All right. I'll read one more question from this side, if there is any, and then I'm going to close. Nobody else? Have any question this side? Just one. Hey, Danny. Okay, go on. But there's Danny there and there's... Come on, come on. Why have some of you question how then it's one person. Okay, let's just take the last two guys, the last two.
The issue of foreigners will always bring it to the fore. Now my question is, how do you indicate that
Thank you. My name is Kabelo Mpisi. Thank you for the fruitful presentation, Akona. You mentioned that most of the children won't reach grade 12. And we are aware that in the different FET schools, whereby the scope is not as wide as we can perceive for those children who didn't complete the matric education. What can we do? What is your advice? Thank you.
That's the end of our question session. We're now asking Akona to respond, then we close the session. Obviously, there's going to be more conversations happening throughout the year, and we will see how we keep the legacy of Tsietsi Mashinini within the context of education and have many permutations. All right, over to you, Akona.
Thank you so much. I feel like I want to be prof now and say I have a commitment elsewhere and run away from these questions. But so important, and help also want to reflect, as I cannot claim standing here that I have answers to all of these questions. I have none. I am reflecting back as the questions have been asked. The first one on the curriculum, whether our curriculum is developing learners who are ready to face the world out there. I think there's been many studies, discussions, especially within universities, that our curriculum isn't sufficient to prepare our students for the world beyond university or schools. This is one of the important things. I think that is actually tied to number 5 question, the last questions around the learners who we cannot track from grade 1 to grade 12. Where do they fall within the education system? And what are the alternative pathways? Because we know in the curriculum or in the education system before this one, we know that our parents went to Form Mangban and Form Manban, and they didn't have to progress right through. They were certificated when they in a particular form, and when you have a certificate for that particular form, you were then able to enroll for particular things. And if you progress, it's like that as well. And I think TVET colleges were one of the ways of thinking about alternative pathways, but I don't think it has actually been inculcated, because we all want to go to grade 12, we all want to actually go to universities, and the numbers within the TVET colleges are actually not really as encouraging as they should be, particularly for those we see, because those who fall in the cracks within the education system ought to have the alternative learning pathways that don't necessarily require them to go to grade 12. Skilling in alternative forms other than academic education is something that all development states thrive with as well. And so the grade 4 question around issues of reading. And so, of course, the issue of reading is picked up at grade 4. It picked up at grade 4 because it is a crack within the foundation phase. And you will not know within the foundation phase whether a learner cannot read and write until they actually go to grade 4 in that transition. Then you actually then see that, oh my God, the investment has been minimal. And so the question around strengthening early learning and foundational learning, it is an intervention that is required so that when you measure the transition of foundational learning into grade 4, you are able to strengthen the learning outcome in that way. And so the question of the data collection, social inclusion. So this is the SNEs, the broad spectrum of disability learning. And this is actually a problem and also a thorn really within the education system because of the embeddedness within the education system and the minimal data that it has to actually analyze some of this data. I think within EMIS, because that data is collected, EMIS collects data across all schools, the independent schools, even the schools of learners with disability, they do collect this data. It's being analyzed, but because the numbers are very low, sometimes that reflection, and I think the question of enrollment of autistic learners is a debate quite broadly, because even within the disability schools that we have in the country, the provision for such is actually something that the system was not prepared for. And most of these kids, they are in long waiting lists because there isn't an expanded supporting function even within the disability schools themselves. And so I think that is a debate within the disability section within the education that is actually being looked for. As a result, most of the parents complain about this, that they end up having to take their kids to private schools because in the public system there is a handful of the schools that can accommodate autistic learners. The question around foreign learners enrollment, I think I will tie it back to that question of it's an important question. I think Prof raised the points around the broad political issues we are facing with the country that at face value seem to be a black on black issues. But there are systematic issues that are embedded into this that could be further explained beyond what is actually happening, because indeed South Africa is a signatory to many of the United Nations charters that subscribe to the issue that all learners within the public have they must be granted access to a school and etc., etc. But that is a debate, again, beyond me, because I still want to keep my job. I don't want to come here and speak on behalf of the United Nations in something that is not. But UNHCR within the United System is one of the organizations that deal with some of these, and they can speak expansively and on some of these, on some of the issues that we are facing. But the issues of inequality within our country are whether we have a Zimbabwean in our country. When the Zimbabwean is gone, it's going to be my neighbor who is next on my fighting list, right? Because in isiXhosa, there is a saying that says, "Zihlabana nje ziyalamba." In translation is, when we are hungry, we are actually narrow into thinking who is actually making us hungry. And so the next person naturally would be that person. So zihlabana nje ziyalamba. I would leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Akona, and I appreciate that you went back to this whole prickly issue of migration, immigration, and everything else. We're moving quite nicely. We're moving towards the end of our program now. I'm going to first re-announce the announcement I made earlier on. When the poem is delivered, right after that, I would ask those veterans who were there on that day, Wednesday morning, marching, to come up the stage so they can take the photo, yeah? So that it's more organized. Thanks, Peter. That's one. And the second one, I would like to call on Mandisa Vundla to render a poem for us. Thereafter, before we give the gift to our second panelist, we will have, no, after we give, we'll have the principal to close for us. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much. We might call you again. Thank you so much for that rendition. At this point in time, I'd like to ask those who were there on the 16th, 1976, June, on a winter day, to come up here so we do a photo. After that, the head of the school will thank us all and close. During that time, I will ask for another poem. And then after that, Motlatsi, you'll have to come for appreciation of all partners, unless if somebody is going to do it. I don't know the partners, so I don't want to mess it up. Right, let's do a photo. Please come up here. Please come up here. It doesn't matter where you were more lining, whether no le kopili komo rago or no le kamo sizwe sto kamole. Hanole mo kayamo. Le ba mangwele le kala. So ba shayanga mate. Komu zobu ya nini jela gama. Tlayang, somebody must choreograph the photo. I don't know how to do that. Eh? No, presenter is after here. Or actually, I'll embed it. It will embed. How about I go? Whilst we do that, whilst we're doing that, you are also going to ask the head of RCL to join us. The principal of the school must join us. It's your home. And the principal of the school. Teacher Mapena, can you just lower the volume? Can we also have our teacher, our biology teacher, Mapena? Teacher Rose, Ozan? Yeah, it's should we help you? It's just to make sure. Never. Ke kgopela 5 minutes ya nako ya lona. Principala, ke kgopela President, 120 re bitsa SRC, se ba bitsa and what? Le bitsa SRC, se ba bitsang manje? RCL. And Akona, where's Akona? D. Omri Akona, President of the NRC. And little gift, and then Principal authorities a vote of thanks. Marare Tsepeli, a photo, a gift. Omri, come to the front. D, come to the front. Akona, come to the front to hand over a gift. The veterans, the veterans, they sharp more. By sharp. Omri Tlayang, the veterans, man. No, but the veterans, but okay, fine. One last item, guys, just one last item. Just tolerate me, just for a second. I would like to thank Akona, the time she took, her content, her ability to actually respond to a lot of challenging questions and statements, and really appreciate the time she's taken to even be here. Her input, similar to that of Professor Jansen, has enriched the process, and I think we come out of here having lots of questions, maybe messages, maybe querying ourselves, so that we decide what next must we do. Because soon we will be really sick. On that note, I'm asking that the principal, D, hands over a gift, a symbol of gratitude to Akona. Over to you. Thanks. We're moving on, we're moving along. Had it not been for this gentleman who has gracefully been heading this school, which has got so much memory, a lot of us would not be here. I'm going to hand over to the principal of the school to do a vote of thanks, after which Mutlatsi must come and acknowledge all the partners that made this process possible. Over to you. Over to you.
Thank you, Program Director, for the opportunity. Thank you very much. Without you, this program wouldn't be a success. You drove it to the latter up until this time. We have shown that, indeed, you can drive the show. So thank you very much. Thank you and thank you. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the pastor who opened this ceremony with a wonderful prayer. The beginning of knowledge is to fear God. Thank you very much for that wonderful prayer. Let me again thank the president of the RCL, Thank you very much. You have shown that you can do it. And let me assure you, we develop leaders here at Morris Isaacson. We are grooming leaders here at Morris Isaacson. So you have seen. I cannot just talk much on that one. You have seen. Right. Let me again thank the Professor Jansen in his absentia, for availing himself to clarify, or let me say, to give a wonderful speech and also to clarify some of the questions that we had. So we thank him very much in his absentia. I like the fact that he even alluded to say charity begins at home. It's what we always preach to our kids, that we judge where you are coming from through your behavior. So I like the fact that he highlighted that part. Thank you very much, Prof, in his absentia. Thanks very much. Let me also again take this opportunity to thank House Akona. Through her research, she reminded me of the quantitative and qualitative research that I've done back then, previously. Thank you very much. You have shown that, indeed, you are a researcher. Unlike today, when we talk of our learners, giving them, they don't understand the importance of research. But anyway, she has highlighted, the Prof highlighted that the problem is with the system of education, whereby one would like to copy a research from the classmate and stuff. You won't learn anything in that case. So thank you very much for giving us clarity, giving us whatever needed in terms of the research. Thank you very much for that. And also let me thank, we have got different dignitaries in our midst, like Tandem Kize, also the Insights Innovations. Some of the things you cannot hide, I must say it, the role that some of the people are playing here in our school, like Insights Innovations, who of course, they are offering the school 3,000 Rand every month to buy sanitary towels for your kids. Thank you very much for availing yourself here in this midst. Let me thank the alumni for organizing this wonderful, wonderful event. It is wonderful, you can see. They've shown that they can do it, and they are still going to do it. I like the fact that they are now involving these young ones, our learners, because this history should go to these learners so that they understand where we are coming from and where we are going. It is very important. Hoping that next year we'll be having more learners. More and more learners must be involved in this type of event because it's about them in a way. Let me thank the management of the school. The SMT is here to give the support to this event. Thank you very much. Alone, we cannot do it. Let me also thank the music team. Those who do not know, let me tell you, here at Morris Isaacson, we are having music as a subject, not music as an extramural activity, as a subject. As I speak now, we have learners who are doing grade 11 music. Next year, we'll be having matric music in our school. So our main aim, the SMT can tell, is to have Morris Isaacson becoming a school of specialization, because we have got a center. So we must take advantage of this particular center. So that's where we are going as a school. Thank you very much. You have seen, we have got learners who are talented, and then that's what we are trying to do, to bring those learners who are talented, to practice, to exercise this talent. Thank you very much, the music team. Let me also thank learners of Morris Isaacson. Let me thank parents from the community and even beyond. Thank you for coming to support this event. Without you, this event wouldn't be a success. Keep up with the good work to support this event in future, so that people end up understanding that Tsietsi Mashinini lecture does exist and is still gonna exist in the near future. Thank you very much, community. Let me thank everybody in this hall who is here. Feel free. We are grateful for your presence here. Thank you and thank you and thank you very much.
Just in addition, I've been asked to also thank the mural painter, the GP Spot, and the Phuthanang Youth Trust that's been supporting for 8 years, and of course the artist Mandi Savundla. On that note, I declare the lecture closed. There are snacks out there. Thank you so much for your time and for your kindness. You all go well and safe.